Welcome. This is Rudy Giuliani with another edition of Rudy's Common Sense. This edition is going to be focused on the recent indictment by the special counsel, Mr. Durham, against Igor Danchenko. But in a broader sense, it's going to be focused on what does that tell us about where the Durham investigation has gotten, and then how much additional light does it shed on what we all now know were false, contrived charges of Russian collusion against President Trump that we can trace back, well into the early part of 2016 and probably even into 2015. Now, this indictment is very helpful in the sense that it's what prosecutors call a speaking indictment. So you can have two kinds of indictments. One indictment would just lay out on or about a certain date, Mr. Jones walked into the federally insured bank and willfully and knowingly, you put the language of the statute in, held up the bank and took $50,000. Or when you have a thing like this that's a conspiracy that involves untold numbers of people, you generally want to lay the story out, or as much as you know of the story, in order to explain it, but also in order to begin to have the wheels start turning that maybe certain people should cooperate if they want to avoid becoming the ultimate kingpin in the indictment scheme, which is the one who'll go to the prison for the most time. So just like the Sussman indictment, which is slightly on a somewhat different issue, this indictment of Igor Danchenko is quite voluminous and written almost like a crime story. I mean, it's well written, actually. There are people who feel that these indictments, these types of indictments, are unethical. These speaking indictments. I must say, I don't. I used them myself when I was a prosecutor. I used them in particularly complex cases where it's important to lay out and have people understand it. And I used it for precisely the purpose this one was being used, to see if you could move further up in the chain. It does make it a little more difficult to explain this to you because it gets kind of convoluted, but I think I'm going to accomplish that by doing a chart for you that once you see that chart and you take a picture of it, anytime you discuss this case with your friends, you'll understand it better than anyone, because I'm going to do the kind of chart I used to use when I prosecuted some of the worst criminals of the latter part of the 20th century. And I don't know that Mr. Danchenko would fit into that category. Indeed, my concern, which I'll express a little bit more later, is that we seem to be going after the small fry. Now, that could be the stage of the investigation we're at, which is going along ridiculously slowly. There may be reasons I don't know, so I'll put that caveat in, but I am completely frustrated by how long it has taken Mr. Durham to get where we are now. This seems to me you could have gotten here to this point a year and a half ago. And he really did owe it to the American people, to without being unfair and without being irresponsible, he owed it to the American people to work 24 hours a day and try to get this done before the election. Because I think when you listen to this, like so many other things that we found out in the last 4 or 5 months, it'll be just further evidence that the man we elected president was a criminal. And it is rather unnerving to have a 30-year criminal sitting in charge of our country, and also, I guess on a slightly different point, one that doesn't seem to be in possession of his full mental capacity. And that's kind in the way I just said that. So it might have been absolutely necessary to take this long, but it's done great damage to this country. These facts should have been known before the election. And it could have been done I ran a prosecutor's office that was I guess it's the premier prosecutor's office in the country. This same one that's the same one that's handling some of the cases now. This one is being done in the Eastern District of Virginia by the U.S. Attorney from Connecticut. So it isn't the same office, but it's of the same quality. And you have different kinds of prosecutors, some that move quickly, some that move too quickly and not responsibly. Some that move slowly and very carefully, and some that move slowly and kind of lose the thread of the case by going so slow. And then you get that perfect in between, which is move quick, but with great authority. I think had I been supervising this case, there would have been a couple of what the mafia calls sit-downs. I had to do that sometimes with my assistants, and it always resulted in them moving faster. But in any event, this is what we have now. So let's see how we best describe it. Let's describe the indictment first, and then we'll briefly, after that, we'll put it in the context of the overall investigation. And then I am going to conclude by giving you my theory of the case now. The first two parts of this are fact. The indictment is the indictment. We'll explain it to you, and it fits into the overall group of things that have been revealed. The third, we're going to play Sherlock Holmes and kind of take everything we've got and see what's the final conclusion of this. And maybe you can think along with me at home and send me some things on rudyscommonsense.com so we can discuss it further as this moves along, because this will be going on for a while. So let's go right to the indictment. The indictment, as you can see, this is an indictment. This gets voted by a grand jury, and just a majority vote, by the way, of a grand jury. It's not, indictments do not have to be voted unanimously the way jury verdicts have to be unanimous. So a majority vote of the grand jury, and it has to be agreed to by the prosecutor, and you can see Mr. Durham's name down here approving it. There are other documents that I didn't bother to bring along. They're rather technical, but it would be the foreman of the grand jury who affirms the vote. And if you're interested in procedure, what happens is they take a vote, and then they report the vote to a federal judge, who then enters the indictment in the rolls of the court. And it has to contain the signature of the foreman of the grand jury and of the chief prosecutor. So in this case, it's Mr. Durham as special counsel for the Department of Justice. It's a 39-page indictment, which really isn't overly lengthy for a case of this complexity. And it lays out the crimes that Mr. Danchenko committed. Essentially, the crimes that he committed can be summarized as lying to the FBI. And lying to the FBI, but not I wouldn't call this one of those process crimes, like remember the Flynn case was lying to the FBI. And he lied about whether he had a recollection of a conversation with the Russian ambassador, which in fact the FBI knew he had and had the transcript of. So there was no reason really to ask the question, but to see if you could trip him up. Here, in most cases, not all, the FBI is seeking information because they don't have all the answers to this. Because if they did, my goodness, then it would have been terrible if they hadn't brought the indictment much, much earlier. So he is charged with violating the false statement and perjury statutes of the United States. And there are a group of different lies that he told that, as we go through them and as we go through the story, will tell you kind of what was going on here. Now, let me put this in the context of me, at least, because I was a defense lawyer in this case of Russian collusion, which I think we did a good job of disposing of and destroying. And I'm very happy to see that whatever else Mr. Durham accomplishes, this Russian collusion thing is going to be put properly where it belongs, which is, not only wasn't it true, this was a deliberate frame-up organized by the highest echelons of the Democrat Party. This isn't just an accident. This isn't just a mistake. This isn't just a conversation that was misunderstood. This is a deliberate plan on the part of Hillary Clinton to get the focus off her crimes, which were the 33,000 emails that she destroyed. It was really to try to rectify the damage Comey had done, because although Comey didn't indict her, which he should have, any other prosecutor would have done so, wanting to be all things to all people, Comey laid out an unbelievably strong case of criminality on the part of Hillary Clinton. In fact, when you finish listening to Comey's description, you say to yourself, well, he's going to indict her now. And then he switches and he says, no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case. And all reasonable prosecutors I knew would be dying for this case. Like it proved itself. Well, that left Hillary very, very damaged. And she needed to do something to kind of cut down that momentum. And as you will see, she came up with the idea that the best thing to do to get the focus off her was to put the focus on Trump. And when we come back, we'll have the chart ready and we'll start going through it in detail, but in a way that you'll find it, I think, very accessible and very easy to understand. So we'll be back in just a minute or two. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, that's HomeTitleLock.com. Welcome back as we get to the law school part of this podcast, but a nice, easy law school. Actually, this is the U.S. Attorney's part of it. Every case I ever did of any complexity, I always did charts, both for my assistants and the FBI, so they figured out the things that had to be filled in. And then eventually, when I took the case to the jury, I would always do charts because I generally prosecuted complex conspiracies, RICO cases, where the interreaction of people is what proves the case. Small little facts, we call them circumstantial facts, can often make the case much, much clearer and much easier to see the criminality. So let's do the overview of this case, this 39-page indictment. We'll put it into English rather than all the legalese. Although I have to say, if you actually went ahead and read the indictment, I think you'd pick up most of it. It's very well written. And I'm a critic. If it wasn't, I'd tell you, a lot of them are written horribly. So there's only one defendant in this case, and it's Mr. Danchenko. He's the only one prosecuted. He has co-conspirators, and they're named. He has people who helped him, but they haven't been indicted as of now. So they're in one or two categories. They're either going to be indicted when there's more evidence, or they feel they're ready to do it, or they're going to be witnesses against Danchenko. Although my suspicion is this whole case is being done to try to make Danchenko a witness as we go up the ladder, because as you can see, they're going to be a lot more important people to prosecute than this Russian guy who's been in the U.S. for something like 10, 12 years. He has worked for the Russian government. We don't know exactly who or what he is, but he sure was very valuable to Mr. Steele in this case, and you'll see how. So what happened here is after Comey did his damage to Hillary, and probably even before that, this was beginning to start. In fact, I know it was beginning to stir way back. I can trace it to January of 2016, when there was a meeting in the White House of the staff members of the National Security Council, and Ukrainian prosecutors were called in, ostensibly to be discussing how you could do a better job of fighting corruption in Ukraine. And into the meeting came two staff members on the Security Council of none other than Joe Biden's. And they were quite annoyed that the conversation had gone off in that direction. And they said, hey, what we're really here for is we want you to dig up dirt on Manafort, which was an extraordinary thing to do. Remember, the premise of the investigation of Trump, the theory that he violated the law that cost us $45 to $50 million, was that he sought to get information from foreign governments. Now, it's questionable whether that's illegal or not, but at least it was illegal enough to justify a $45 million investigation. Well, there are 4 or 5 witnesses that are ready, willing, and able to testify that 2 of Joe Biden's highest officials when he was vice president, his representatives on the National Security Council, came into a meeting and asked specifically that foreigners dig up information that would be material to an American election. Now, if that's a crime for Trump, it's a crime for Biden, except we don't live in the America we thought we lived in. We live in a double standard America where what I just told you is completely ignored. And the identity of one of those 2 people is really very, very significant, because it ties a whole ribbon around the final phony impeachment, because he was one of the main people pushing that 5 years later. So this was a really dedicated Trump derangement syndrome victim who spent 4 years hanging around the White House, having tried to nail Trump at the beginning by getting dirt on Manafort. And failing in doing that, he tried to nail him at the end with regard to the perfectly defensible conversation the president had with the president of Ukraine. If you had the hard drive that explains all of the things that Biden did in Ukraine, which Biden was lying about, and the hard drive was being concealed by the FBI, the Department of Justice. So, January is the first indication that there's a movement going on to try to pull together information about Trump acting in some way inappropriately with the Russian government. And it becomes pretty clear to Brennan, none other than Brennan, the whole purpose of this by Hillary is to cover up the problem she's having over her emails and the way in which Comey painted her as guilty, but he didn't prosecute her. So here's how it works. Here's how this indictment, this conspiracy, here's how it's organized. At the very top of it, of course, is Hillary Clinton and the Hillary Clinton campaign. I just put down Hillary here, but this would involve where the money came from and the ultimate place where the information was going to go to. So you see, we've got 2 sets of arrows. We've got the red arrows, and the red arrows shows you the flow of information, and the green arrows shows you something that's involved in all Clinton situations, the flow of illegal money. I mean, what are the Clintons other than, what would you call them, grifters? Grifters from Arkansas who used to, take 30, 40,000 to sell out Arkansas, who moved up and used their friend who just got defeated for governor, McAuliffe, to sell the Lincoln bedroom a couple hundred times. Why he didn't go to jail for selling government property for political purposes? Maybe that was the beginning of the destruction of our justice system that's going to have to be fixed if we want to bring this country together. But by the time we get here, to 2016, when Hillary's putting this together, Hillary's a multi-millionaire now. I mean, she's getting $120 million for selling us out to Russia, stuff like that. And Bill's getting, commonly getting $4 and $5 million speaking fees from some of our biggest enemies. I accomplished a lot in 2020 exposing the truth. establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Could be the point that really turned and destroyed the poor Democrat Party. It could be the Clintons that infected it with this pay-for-play, overemphasis of dollars and different view of politics than I think most of you have, which is it's a place to make contribution to the people, not to steal money from them. So Hillary wants to develop a very specific allegation against Trump. And the allegation she wants to develop is that Trump is acting in coordination with the Russian government in order to get dirt on her. Now, she actually, it turns out, slightly irrelevant to this indictment, but very relevant to what I did and the investigations that I had, the information that I've turned over. She was doing that with the Ukrainian government. She was using the Ukraine, and Biden was helping her. And that's how I ended up investigating Biden, not to try to stop him from being president, but to try to get his evidence to defend my client who was falsely accused. So what she was doing is charging Trump with something he wasn't doing, but that she was doing in the Ukraine. You're going to see that pattern emerge many times in this investigation. There's a powerful process of projection that goes on here among these Democrats. You know, for example, when they do the impeachment of Trump for pressuring or bribing the president of Ukraine, and they put out all those words that he pressured and then eventually the conversation is laid out, and he doesn't pressure, he doesn't push, he doesn't insist. Wasn't that exactly what Biden did that he admitted in that dumb, stupid conversation with the Atlantic Society or the Society on Foreign Relations, where he said he told the president of Ukraine, if you don't fire the prosecutor, I'm going home and you're not getting your $1 billion and your country can go bankrupt and I don't give a damn. Because he left out of that prosecutor was investigating his son's company, and the multi-millionaire organized criminal who ran the company, Zlochevsky, who had bribed Biden to be there to help him if they tried to take the company away from him. And that's why the crooked Ukrainian gave so much money to a drug addict. He wasn't going to, a smart organized criminal doesn't give $4, $5, $6, $8 million to a guy that just got tossed out of the military for being a drug addict. He was buying Biden and Kerry. Remember, Biden was in business with Kerry's stepson. And we always look at the $82,000 or $86,000 a month that Hunter was getting, which comes out to over $1 million a year. But Hunter's partner, Devin Archer, was getting another $86 million. So the firm was going over $2 million until Devin got indicted. Because these are the kind of people they hang around with. People who get indicted. Because the family is, I'm sorry to say, a crooked family and has been for the longest time. So Hillary hires a law firm, Perkins Co., whatever, however you want to say it, law firm. Now, they're a very big law firm. They do a lot of things. One of the things I think historically they're going to regret terribly is they brought this guy, Mark Elias, in to do political work, and he turned them into sort of a Democrat fixer operation as opposed to a real law firm. He was at the core of the 2016 and 2020 elections, also at the core of a lot of the strange and unusual things that happened in 2020 that led to all of the disputes over a stolen election and, if not a stolen election, fraud and changes in voting rules at the last minute that weren't handled the same way for both sides. Well, in any event, the Perkins Coie law firm, which I certainly don't want to paint with a broad brush, because I know how these law firms are compartmentalized, and it's a fine law firm, other than the fact that in Washington, they had what really was basically an arm of the Democratic National Committee. And that was Mark Elias's group of about 20 lawyers who focused on election law and election manipulation. So she hires them because what she really wants to do is hire a group that can develop the frame-up of Trump, that can develop the evidence that can be used to show that Trump somehow is in some kind of a conspiracy with the Russian government. Well, Perkins Coie can't do that. I mean, they're lawyers. They're not. Well, I don't know. Maybe Elias's people can do that. I'm not sure. But that isn't the purpose of why she gave them the money. And we know the money was at least $1.1 million. I suspect there was far more. We know it came from her. We know some of it came from her campaign. We believe that some of it came from the DNC, and we think there were some of her many rich patrons who give her and Bill enormous amounts of money that might have put in money. And that's why we think the 1.1 million is a conservative, low ball, but quite a bit of money, even to these characters. 1.1 million is quite a bit of money for the rather limited task that they had. So now we see our little green arrow, our first little green arrow, right? Hillary gets a law firm, pays them 1.1 million. The law firm goes out and finds an investigatory company. That might be a euphemism for a company that digs up dirt on people to try to destroy them. That's really what it does, and that's why they make a lot of money. Fusion GPS is run by a guy named Glenn Simpson, who was a former Wall Street Journal writer, didn't make a lot of money as a Wall Street Journal writer, wanted to be a millionaire, and he figured best way to do that is to be an oppo research guy for politics. People will give you millions to dig up dirt on people. He had actually been hired by an opponent of Trump already, a Republican opponent of Trump, to do that, to try to destroy Trump. Isn't this a great way to make a living, by the way? Wow. Just get paid to try to destroy people. Well, in any event, however far along that got, we don't know, because that guy, as did every other Republican, got trounced by Trump, right? I mean, Trump went through, 13 of them? Just beat them all. So that guy was out. He no longer needed the services of this hit job firm, Fusion GPS. So they were fishing around to see who could they sell their magnificent services of destroying people's reputation to. And who better than Hillary Clinton, right? Hillary was an expert at this. Remember the Bimbo Squad? Did you ever see The Color Purple, that movie, The Color Purple? Pretty accurate there, about all the girls that came along and said that Bill was impregnated them, raped them, and Hillary made sure they were all destroyed. So Hillary was good at that. I mean, she'd been a crooked politician for quite some time, covered by a fawning press. So Hillary's got 1.1 million out on the street. Perkins Coie is used to launder it, really. This is so it gets harder to get to the money because you can say there's a law firm in the middle. Now, I don't see how you have attorney-client privilege for digging up dirt on Trump. But when it goes through a law firm, it's hard to know what it's for. So at least you get the ability to raise it, slow it down. If you get a really, really friendly Democrat judge appointed by Obama or Clinton who's willing to sell his soul to the devil, they may even rule in your favor. But this is not really a true invocation of the attorney-client privilege, but it's a good fig leaf. So she gives the money to the law firm. The law firm goes out and they hire Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. And Glenn's job is to continue the dirty work he was doing already on trying to destroy Trump and do it now for the benefit of Hillary Clinton. And this is all now, well, let's sort of frame this in terms of dates. This is all in the first half leading up to the middle of 2016, the election year. And probably about the middle of the year, Fusion GPS is on board. And what we know for sure is they're going to get $1.1 million. We don't know if that's the total amount or that's just the amount for Steele. So Fusion GPS does a contract with a gentleman named Christopher Steele, who was an intelligence agent of the British government, now retired, I would say somewhat broken down, a guy with a record of Trump derangement syndrome that would possibly qualify for psychiatric treatment. And so he seemed like a great guy to get because they weren't really looking for evidence that you could prove in court. They were looking for dirt that they could. This was going to be a get the dirt and then utilize our substantial press acolytes and sycophants and the ones who'll do corrupt things for us, of which it's about 80% of the press. And we're going to smear them. So we don't necessarily have to prove it for court. But let's get it so we can get it out and get him out. And so they employ Christopher Steele, the former agent, been out of the business for quite some time, so didn't have any current sources. And his job is to show the connection between Trump and the Russian government and Putin. The problem is there was no connection, so he had to go create it. He was at a disadvantage because I guess he wanted the money, but I don't believe he had been in Russia in 17 years. So he wasn't exactly the right person to be able to dig this up. But he thought, I can, what the heck, this is all a big phony game anyway, so let me see what I can do. And he hooks up with somebody who knows a lot about Russia. And his name is Igor Danchenko. Igor Danchenko is a Russian, been in the United States for quite some time, worked for quite some time. He's sort of a intellectual, worked for the Brookings Institute, pro-Democrat, I assume pro-Marxist, who knows what he really is, right? You never know. I mean, I used to do this work for a long time, and Danchenko has a certain kind of profile that says who could be an operative of the Russian government. He may not be an operative of the Russian government. In any event, he had an 8-year contract with the Russians, paying him a lot of money. So Steele hooks up with Danchenko, who can supply for him the current information he doesn't have. So sort of step back for a minute and think about what con men these people are, right? So the money gets laundered through Perkins Coie, all right? It goes to Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS they don't know anything about Russia. So they go get a guy named Steele. I don't know, either they do know or they don't know because they don't do any due diligence, that Steele doesn't know a damn thing about Russia either because they haven't been there in 17 years. But Steele wants the money, so he doesn't tell them. So he goes out and he subcontracts and he gets himself Danchenko, who is pretty current about Russia, although not that he's been there in a while. And he's given the mission of, what can you get me on Manafort and Trump and that will hurt them. So Danchenko now goes to a guy who knows as much, if not more, about Russia than he does. A fellow named Chuck Dolan, who happens to be very close to the Clintons. He was a party chairman of 2 different states when Bill Clinton ran. He's been on the Clinton committee since then. He's also been working for Russia for quite some time, has good connections in Russia, and therefore can dig up some really, really good information about Russia. So here's what he does. He tells Danchenko, I got some really good information for you. Just so happens I had a meeting with a very, very highly placed GOP big shot. And the GOP big shot tells me there's a lot of connections with Russia. There's a lot going on there, but there's really something to it, that Trump has connections with them. A whole bunch of gossip of the nature that there's a really strong connection between Trump's campaign and Putin and Russia. Now, where does he get this? Where does he get this information? Where does Dolan get this information? Well, we're going to tell you that when we come right back, okay? And then we'll take you through the rest of it. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. This case is, as you can see, is an extraordinarily important case. As I've described it, and as I will continue to describe it, it's really not that complicated when you break it down the way we've been doing it. It's not easy, but it's not that complicated. Here's where this case is really complicated. How far is it going to go and what is it going to lead to? In it, what I call the speaking indictment, which is extraordinary. I mean, and as I said, extraordinarily well written, because there have been so many poorly written pieces by journalists on it. The prosecutors here did a really good job of making this. I'm telling you, I broke it down into this for you to make it easier, but you guys could read this and get it. It's not, I mean, they got the quotes right in here, they've got the proof right in here. But we're going to conclude now and do a second part for Friday. And because I want you to be able to concentrate on this. I want to be able to have enough time so that you really get it, because one or two things is going to happen from here. As it should, this is going to develop into a massive investigation that is eventually we're not even here yet. This guy has not been prosecuted. This is outrageous. Neither has Strzok and Page, and who are somewhat peripheral to this. I mean, to prosecute him, or maybe her, you do that to get them to testify against. And then when we get up here, we really should put in the committee that was there on January 5th, right? the committee with the chairman of the board, Obama, the vice chairman, Biden, who's the one who explains how to out General Flynn. He wasn't just a minor participant in this. And then we got Susan Rice, who writes what has got to be a totally phony memo. She waits 10 days until the inauguration to write about the meeting that took place 10 days ago. That's, if that isn't corrupt, what is? Nothing that Obama does, right? Right? So there's a great question that this case raises. In this indictment is every element that tells you this case is a prelude to going up the ladder, 1, 2, 3, 4, and further. Obama, Biden, Brennan, Clapper. There's no reason why it shouldn't. Almost all of the evidence is either here or suggested already to move it up. But we've seen now 20 years of fixing, 20 years of a double standard. We've seen the Clintons get away with, I can't say murder, but taking hundreds of millions, including from Russia, so they get nuclear material. We've seen the Bidens disgrace us in Ukraine, sell out completely to China for millions and millions of dollars and commitments of billions. Are we going to finally prosecute this to conclusion so the people who are really guilty are held accountable? So that we can once again, come out of this, finish it, no matter how ugly it is, and say, we've got a country in which we treat everybody equally. We've got a country in which we don't tolerate selling out America. Nobody gets to do that. Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative. We've got equal justice under the law in our country. Too many people died for us to just let it go to keep Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Obama happy, huh? This is an interesting test, a heck of a crossroads. So let's spend more time in 2 days analyzing the rest of it so we get an idea of exactly what kind of a taking off point this is. So thank you very much, and we'll be back with you in a couple of days, and we will conclude this portion of it. But this is like the conclusion of the beginning of the beginning. Thank you very much, and God bless America.